name is Paul Clark. I'm from Clearwater, Florida, and this is my 2JZ powered Saturn Sky Redline. I had a Saturn Ion Redline. That was my first boosted car, and realized that a little supercharged Ion wasn't fast enough. So I ended up getting a turbocharged Chevy Cobalt SS. It was a yellow sedan. It was one of the rarest that they ever made for a turbocharged Cobalt. Went through 3 motors in that car before I realized that I didn't want to mess with that engine anymore. So I bought this car, and this car had the same engine, and it did not last long. I think I had it for a month. When the engine went out, there was LS swaps happening. They had builder kits to make them work, but I started doing the math on them and they got pretty expensive. You're gonna be spending like $5 grand at the time or so. Get a nice clean one ready to go. I was doing some research on there. I found one guy who found out that the factory transmission with an R154 bell housing from a Toyota Chaser, Soarer, something like that, would mate to my factory transmission and bolt to the 2JZ. So I bought a Toyota clutch, Toyota throwout bearing, Toyota slave cylinder, and that started shaping where this engine was going to sit in this car. Once I bolted the engine, the drive shaft in, I laid it into the frame rails here, and we fabricated some mounts to make it sit nicely and level. It was out of an Aristo. It was a JDM motor. We got it wired up and running, but we found out that I had a cam position sensor wired backwards. Figured that out without getting it retuned, and I ended up melting the piston in the factory motor. And at that point, that's when I was introduced to Induction Performance. I told them what was going on. They gave me some Induction Performance pistons and Manley rods and cams. Once I put the motor back together, it was a fully built bottom end at that point, and they said I can go as far as I want with the turbo I have. It's a BorgWarner S366 turbo. As far as fueling, I have twin 450s going to -8 AN lines. They feed an aftermarket fuel rail and some Bosch 2000cc injectors. It runs on E85. The computer is a Pro EFI 128 with flex fuel, so I'm able to swap between 93 and E85, even though it hates it. This has been tuned by Alpha at Induction Performance. He's pretty much tuned everything and made all my mismatched parts work really well together. Last time I remember was somewhere in the 600s or so. For suspension, I'm running some custom-made BC coilovers. They're originally off the shelf from BC for the car, but my buddy Randy custom makes the valves and the cartridges to help me control the weight of the 2J, and I also wanted to dial in a little bit lower height, so the cartridges are a little bit shorter for what I was looking for. And then the wheels are Ford Star F14s, 18x10s. Factory diameter is 18, so I kind of stuck with that. I was hoping to keep some meat, keep some traction. There's Nitto 555Rs on the back and the 555 G1s on the front. For brakes, I have custom set of 2-piece calipers on the front that use the Wilwood Dynalite caliper. Wilwood ceramic pads up front, and I've got some EBC yellow stuffs on the back. It seems to be a pretty good combination. As far as the exterior mods, I have a RK Sport lip to square off the chin. Kind of got a weak chin from the factory, but with this lip, kind of squares it off, makes it nice. Blacked out a few things. Most of these are chrome from the factory. The badge in the center is chrome. I've got rid of the factory hood vents and installed fiberglass copies of some late model Mustang vents. Got them molded into the hood with one I got the car painted metallic candy yellow. Car was originally yellow. I wanted to stick with yellow. These are Norm fenders that have nice venting. They're functional. In the back, I have Luma Tuning fender flares for an Opel GT. I had to make contact with a company out in Germany and beg them to send them to me. And from what I understand is they haven't been sending them out since. I have a feeling they lost a lot of money in shipping for what they charged me. Though it wasn't cheap, it was a necessity for the tire and the wheel width in the back. Is that a Pontiac Solstice? Even going on Instagram and you see some comments and stuff like that, it's like, that was the coolest Solstice I've ever seen. And you know, it's funny, but a lot of people call it a Solstice. That's why I still try to keep the Saturn emblem on the front there. If somebody wanted to do this, I would say find yourself a car that's a little rough. Something that you don't have to keep clean and nice and pretty. Some cars with bad engines like this you can find for a couple grand maybe. From there, you've already got your transmission. You can even start with an NA build and then turbo it from there and get yourself into it and messing around for a few grand maybe. You can find me on Instagram as One Sketchy Sky. I just recently started TikTok, One Sketchy Sky. I want to shout out my buddy Rob and Brian, who's helped me figure out a bunch of welding and getting the burden off of local welders. And you can always shout out Induction and Alpha for always dealing with me and keeping this thing running right.